Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, and I'll be bringing you candid and sometimes irreverent whiskey news, opinions, and reviews on the industry and the products they've been bringing us for hundreds of years. Today I talk with the American Eagle supermodel, Sydney Sweeney, and I ask her the big question everyone wants to know the answer to. Have you ever done a body shot of mellow corn? But yeah, no, we will not be doing that. But think about this, guys. With the whiskey downturn, the downward trend in whiskey, wouldn't it be awesome if Sydney Sweeney did a Jack Daniels commercial or did ads like sipping on Woodford? Can you imagine it? I just saw that the sales for American Eagle right now are off the chain. They're selling out of all kinds of their stuff. So just imagine if this hot girl grabbed some old number 7 and started chugging it. Sales in this TikTok crazed viral moment kind of society now, I think she could single-handedly turn around this downward trend in the whiskey world. All the generations, Z, X, Y, millennials, everybody would be clearing the shelves. Am I right? Think about it. Well, today we focus on nothing but, guess, bourbony goodness. And unfortunately not on hot girls wearing tight-fitting jeans. And that, my friends, is an entirely different podcast. Here we talk about mostly whiskey, and I've got all kinds of things to throw your way, and we might just learn something while we're at it. So I want to tell you a little bit about my new book today. We've got a couple new releases, including a 34-year-old expression from our good friends at IW Harper. And we got a new beast from our good friends at Heaven Hill with a brand spanking new addition to Parker's heritage. We're going to talk about Canada and bourbon and whiskey and the tariff woes. And finally, I review a bottom shelfer for sure. And I'll get to that a little bit later. You know, we do the review at the end. And always keep in mind, guys, I always try to review stuff you can find and afford. This one qualifies as bold, but I'm really not sure if it'll have the taste we need to avoid pouring it down the drain. But guess what? We're going to do it together, and we're going to find out today if there's both value and flavor in this bottom shelfer. So here's the deal. I wrote a book. Yeah, me. Like an actual book with pages. Well, okay, digital pages. It's called Whiskey Wisdom and Bourbon BS. Barrel Strength Legends, Lies, and Untold Tales. And no, it's not just one story, it's dozens. It's dozens of weird and wild historical truths, maybe true, probably some ridiculous whiskey tales. And I got to tell you, I spent way too many hours researching, writing, rewriting, and arguing with myself about, and yeah, there was a questionable amount of bourbon consumed during this process. But inside this magical little Kindle book, which, by the way, is available right now on Amazon.com, you'll find actual bourbon folklore, stories about outlaw distillers, shady marketing schemes, whiskey-fueled inventions, and the kind of whiskey facts that some of them sound made up because some of them just might be made up. Look, I pulled this stuff from the weirdest corners of whiskey history. And each chapter in the book, this is how it works. Each chapter in the book, it ends with one simple question. Is this whiskey wisdom or is it BS? And you can be the judge. Now, personally, I think it's best enjoyed with the pour you're about to either keep or collect. But either way, there's no judgment here, kids. Just stories, sips, and a whole lot of whiskey-fueled fun. And the best part? It's cheap. Yeah, I figure, why charge a ridiculous amount for it, right? Now, this book's been a labor of love for me, and I actually had a blast cranking this thing out. But don't get me wrong, there was plenty of gnashing of teeth, headaches, and even a good amount of laughs putting this book together. Anyway, you gotta go grab a copy. Like I said, it's on Kindle over at Amazon.com. We all know where that is. And you're going to find the link in the show notes here for this episode. Or just search my name on Amazon, John Stark, Starck. Or you can search the book title, Whiskey Wisdom and Bourbon BS, Barrel Strength Legends, Lies, and Untold Tales. Guys, it's just $10. That's it. For the price of one sad pour at the airport bar, or a whole crappy bottle of Benchmark Old Number 8, which, by the way, you'll get absolutely zero enjoyment out of. Pro tip, you get a whole damn book full of whiskey-fueled chaos. My kind of chaos. Our kind of chaos here on the pod, right? And hey, if you grab a copy today, there's a chance my wife won't leave me, and I might just get to keep making more podcast episodes for all y'all whiskey freaks. It's a win-win, right? Whiskey Wisdom and Bourbon BS, Barrel Strength, Legends, Lies, and Untold Tales. Operators are standing by. Yeah, operators are not standing by, but Amazon will take your money. And I forgot to say, you can read the book on your Kindle device. And you don't have to have a Kindle device. Even without a Kindle, you can read the book. You don't need a Kindle. Let me say that again. Just download the free Kindle app. It works on iPhone, iPad, Android phones, tablets, Google devices like Pixel phones, Chromebooks. If you download the Kindle app from the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, you can have the Kindle app anywhere. Or you can even read it straight from your web browser on your computer at Amazon.com. So log in with your Amazon account and boom, your book is right there. Okay, well, it's there right after you pay for it. So you got options. There's no excuses, guys. Do it now. But seriously, guys, it means a lot to me. Like I said, this was a labor of love. I had a great time doing it. I want to share it with you, but I want to keep doing the podcast too. So if you do snag a book, here's what you do. You plop down on the patio, you light up a cigar, or you don't. Look, I'm not your mom. You pour yourself something good, have a few laughs along the way, and who knows, you might, I said you might, even learn something. The book is Whiskey Wisdom and Bourbon BS, Barrel Strength, Legends, Lies, and Untold Tales. And we've got a new release from our good friends at IW Harper. Well, actually at Diageo, Stitzel Weller. And honestly, guys, I'm torn about this one. Let me explain. Let me give you the deets. IW Harper just dropped the rarest bourbon ever. A 34-year-old cask-strength bad boy from just 4 barrels that were laid down in 1989 at Stitzel Weller. There are only 11 bottles that exist from this particular batch. 5 of those bottles are hitting the auction block at Sotheby's auction house. But here's the hook. Okay, this is the rub. The really odd, strange, and quite frankly, awkward rub. It's in partnership with actor Coleman Domingo, and all proceeds from this auction are going to go to an organization called Native Son. It's a nonprofit that supports and empowers Black queer men. Say what? Now let me be clear. I love everybody. Black, white, gay, straight, folks in between. All good. And this cause, from what I've read, is fine. But pairing ultra-aged bourbon with this, you have to admit, this is a very specific demographic of folks. To me, it feels like a marketing meeting gone off the rails. Like they sat around the boardroom, like they do at Buffalo Trace anymore. At least that's what it seems like, right? I can just picture the Diageo marketing meeting. A bunch of dudes in suits. And yeah, it's probably all dudes, right? They're all wound up on Starbucks and they're brainstorming ideas. One guy's like, all right, we need a killer campaign. What if we take the rarest bourbon we've got, throw in a celebrity partnership, and somehow tie it to a super ultra unique, oddly specific cause? Another guy says, love it, man. Make it ultra exclusive, like just 11 bottles, man. And somebody else says, let's make it about Black queer guys. How's that sound? And at this point, you can just hear the standing ovation. And I'm sure a promotion is ready in hand for this dude too. Look, the crowd who drops 5 figures on a dusty Stitzel Weller, and the folks who get pumped about celebrity wellness retreats, these are pretty much ships passing the night, don't you think? It's like mixing a high-end bourbon auction with a yoga retreat. They're both pretty cool, Hell, I've done goat yoga. That's a long story. But who thought these guys needed to be in the same room? Honestly, to me, it just feels forced and a little confusing. Got another new release, and this one's from Heaven Hill. They just dropped the 19th edition of their Parker's Heritage Collection, and let me tell you, it's a beast. They say it's bold and it's packed with flavor. Now, if you're looking for it to give a big shout out to gay black men or make some grand cultural statement, you might be waiting a while. This one's really more about serious bourbon than social commentary, guys. And quite frankly, that's fine. Sometimes a whiskey just wants to be a whiskey. This year's release is a blend of 3 different mash bills, including a 15-year-old wheated bourbon, an 11-year-old corn whiskey, and a 12-year-old rye and malt whiskey. Each was aged in different rickhouses, then blended together to create a rich, complex flavor, say the good folks at Heaven Hill. It's bottled at barrel proof, clocking in at 122.5, and it's non-chill filtered. Amazing to keep all those deep flavors intact. Looks like you're going to start seeing it in stores this September, so be on the lookout. However, it's limited and it's priced at around $180. So beyond the whiskey itself, this collection, it honors the late Parker Beam, Heaven Hill's former master distiller. He battled ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And part of the proceeds from every bottle goes to ALS research and patient care. And they say that's continuing a legacy that's raised over $1.4 million for this cause. The bottle keeps its classy look with a deep navy blue label and gold accents, fitting for a whiskey series that's won big awards. And well, you know how I feel about the big awards. But normally Parker's Heritage is pretty amazing. I don't know that it's worth $180. Time will tell. Maybe I can get my hands on a pour. Well, we've got chaos in Canada as it relates to liquor and wine, guys. It's finally reached a head, so to speak, up north. And this news comes to us from Toronto, Canada. They're saying the bourbon's all but disappeared from the bars up there. And it seems that the U.S. booze ban is hit pretty hard. And now bars are down to just the last little bits of what used to be decent bourbons like Angel's Envy or Woodford Reserve. Now, these aren't exactly top shelf fancy, but pretty much that's all that's left, and it's costing way more than it used to or that it actually should. So the backstory, for those of you living under rocks, basically, because of the U.S. imposed tariffs on Canadian goods like steel and aluminum and retaliatory measures, the flow of some American alcohol got caught up in this mess. It caused shortages, price hikes on bourbon and other U.S. spirits in Canada. Now, the good folks that wrote this article talked to a bar manager at Danu Social House, and they've had to jack up their prices because bourbon's become super scarce. They say a few stubborn bourbon fans, not really sure we're all stubborn, but they come in every now and then ordering their usual old fashions like jerks or whiskey sours made with the real American stuff. Some habits die hard, I guess. But since bourbon has to be made in the United States, Canadian bars can't just replace it in those drinks with their own whiskeys and call it bourbon. So they're pushing Canadian whiskeys that have a similar bourbon vibe like Beaver's Dram and Stock and Barrel. Never heard of them. And some folks are actually pretty pumped to try those local options now that the bourbon's mostly gone. They say over at a bar called Cafe Nicole, they're selling Signal Hill from Newfoundland, and it's catching on. But if you're dead set on the real bourbon, they say you're going to have to be ready to pay up. Prices have shot up from $14 to $20 a pour, and they say that stock won't last long. They're just running out of American bourbon. Now, some spots decided not to stockpile bourbon before the ban, and they just switched to Canadian bottles altogether. And those places are now probably wishing they kept a bit more bourbon to themselves. And it's not just bourbon, evidently. Bars are feeling the pinch on everything from wine to bar supplies, all thanks to these U.S. restrictions. So yeah, this whole bourbon drought up north, it isn't just some crazy Canadian government plot. It's just the fallout from this trade war and these tariffs turning the booze aisle into a game of hide and seek. And what that means for now is that Canadian bourbon lovers, they're going to have to get cozy with local whiskey, or they're going to have to pay a premium for what little American stuff is left. Either way, it's a wild time for whiskey fans north of the border. That's the whole point of this. But guess who isn't having a bourbon shortage? That's right, whiskey freaks, me. We got bourbon aplenty today, and that brings me to my review. This one's going to be a real bottom shelfer. It's a find that I hadn't tried before. It gives me kind of Wild West vibes, and it just sounds downright badass, like an outlaw gunfighter. It turns out it's not about a Wild West gunfighter, but initially I saw the bottle and thought it was. So that was part of my mistake, I guess. So I was checking out the newest liquor store in town, Save On Liquor. They just opened a couple weeks ago, and I spotted this one way down low on the bottom shelf. The price was right, so I picked it up, and now we're going to dive into it. What am I going to dive into? Well, today, kids, I'm cracking open a bottle of the original Jesse James Bourbon whiskey. I'm going to hit you with the deets real quick. There aren't many to share, honestly, and then we'll taste it. Let me grab the whiskey real quick. All right, so on to the details. Jesse James Whiskey is a brand started by Jesse James Dupree, and he's the founder of the rock band Jackal. I've heard of Jackal, but I don't know if I even heard one of their songs, if I would know what the hell I was listening to. But fun fact, Dupree's his most famous routine on stage involves using a chainsaw as a musical instrument during his song The Lumberjack, and then naturally he plays the chainsaw to the Star Spangled Banner. Okay. So the whiskey is obviously sourced from somewhere. I scoured Al Gore's amazing internet and I could not find where, and that's never, ever a good sign. It does come in at 80 proof because that's on the bottle, that's required. It's also not a terrific sign, but who knows? I'm keeping an open mind. I've had a couple low proofers over the years and they've surprised me from time to time. And if this whiskey is half as exciting as using a chainsaw to play music, maybe we'll be impressed. So the bottle looks like it belongs on the bottom shelf. Imagine, and most of us have seen a bottle of 10 High, imagine what a bottle of 10 High whiskey looks like. It looks almost identical, and I'm actually surprised he's not gotten sued for copyright or trademark infringement. But hey, I'm not a lawyer, just a whiskey freak. Enough said. The age of this one. Now, the one thing I was able to find on the internet is that this whiskey is 24 months old. That too is unfortunate. The mash bill. Once again, absolutely nothing to be found on the internet or anywhere else about the mash bill. I did find out it's made in Tennessee. That's the word on the street. That was not definitive, and that doesn't come from the company. That is the word on the street. That is a rumor. So at this point, I say we just get on with the tasting and finish the review. Today I'm tasting with a Glencairn, my favorite limestone branch Glencairn, actually. Oh, and one last thing on the bottle. It says the whiskey is tavern strength. I don't know what the hell that means. I mean, it's 80 proof, so it's 80 proof strength, right? There's not a lot of strength going on at 80, right? I think the marketing team, they need to do a little work on this label. That's just my opinion. Alrighty, let me crack this bottle open. Unscrew it. Twist off. Okay. Get a decent pour here in the Glencairn. And never judge the color by the bottle alone, guys. You got to pour it in a glass to really evaluate it. You got to have a lot of light in your room, like a CIA interrogation. And that way you can really, and don't use a frosted Glencairn. Don't use a smoky Glencairn. Use a clear Glencairn. And the reason I say that is because you want to see what the color is. The color can sometimes give you an idea about the breadth of flavors you're about to put in your mouth. It's my opinion that the darker the hue of the whiskey in your glass, the deeper the flavors are going to be. Now, that's not always true, but it is sometimes, and it is most of the time, actually. It's worth noting, and I'm going to say it every single time. Now, the color of this one is actually a bit darker than I figured it would be for a 24-month-old whiskey. Let me grab, I got an idea. Let me grab my bottle, my favorite bottle of Traveler. Just one second. And you guys are wondering, Traveler? Didn't you dump your bottle of Traveler? The answer is no, I didn't dump it, believe it or not. I kind of keep it as a trophy. Proof that blowing $35 on bad whiskey is a mistake. You only need to make one time. So I do have my bottle of Traveler here. I'm also going to grab a bottle of Very Old Barton 80 proof, and I'm going to put all three of these side by side. Okay, let me pour these real quick, guys. The Very Old Barton having a screw cap. Very fancy. $12 bottle, you know, pretty high-end stuff. And then the Traveler, actually, Traveler has a fancy cork. All right. Okay. So, the Jesse James, like I said, it's got this, it's darker than I thought it would be, but it's still a super light yellow kind of straw color. And I'll be damned, but as I hold it up next to that Very Old Barton 80, they look about the same. Actually, the Jesse James has got it just barely on color, just a little, just a shade darker. What the hell? Traveler is actually darker than either of them, so I'll be damned. And this Very Old Barton 80 proof, I think it's supposed to be like, I think they say 36 months. Well, it's 3 years old at least anyway. That's the word on the street, and I think that's actually official from Barton. All right, let me go ahead and nose this. Now, look, I didn't mean for this to become a three-way, but yet here we are. Let me nose the Jesse James first. Okay, I'm getting some subtle notes of, well, rubbing alcohol, a good amount of vanilla. There's a tinge of caramel in here, and honestly, on the nose, that's about it. It's really not bad on the nose. Let me check out the Very Old Barton 80 proof real quick. Now, it's older, so theoretically, it should bring a bit more to the table. Yeah, it does. Ever so slightly here. It's richer. Okay, it's not a rich vanilla or caramel, but it's more full than the Jesse James is, and not much else. Look, I'm not bothering with the Traveler here. Let me set this crap out here. I'm not fooling with the Traveler, not one bit. All right, I got to taste this stuff, guys. Let me get the Jesse James in hand. Oh crap! Let me get a bottle of water real quick too. All right, that way I can clear the palate. All right, let me give this Jesse James a quick taste. Yeah, it is super thin, and that's really not shocking for a 2-year-old bourbon. But the flavors here aren't offensive. Hang tight. I got to get another quick sip real quick of this Jesse James. Okay. Mostly getting just a light caramel here with a whisper of oak. Honestly, I'm not dying to take another sip of the Jesse James. So just for a moment, let me set it down. Let me let me clear my palate. Okay, and let me get a little bitty drink of that Very Old Barton 80. Let me let that all clear. Let me just look at it in the glass a little bit. All right, let's see what's up with the VOB. Okay. Yeah, the VOB brings that a little bit heavier vanilla and caramel. Could be the slightest bit of oak in here too. Now, in fairness, it's not knocking my socks off, but compared to the Jesse James, it might have the edge right now. Let me clear my palate again. And I want to get one more sip of Jesse James. Just give it a second for that to clear. And I'm going to sip the Jesse James another time. Okay, yeah. It's very one-dimensional, the Jesse James, but it's not offensive. It's not off-putting. And the finish, it lasts a long, long time, actually. That oak becomes a bit spicier after about 60 seconds here. I mean, could I sip this for a bit if I had to? Maybe. Let me get another sip of the VOB 80 real quick. Okay, the very old Barton 80. It does have, in addition to what I've already gotten, it's got a bit of light citrusy note in it. But if you think back to the Ancient Age, I did a head-to-head of Blanton's against Ancient Age last year. I'm getting this same kind of stamp-licking kind of note, and that's a big turnoff for me. That's no bueno. Let me get another sip of the Jesse James. I want to clear one thing up here before I do the verdict. Okay, I think I have enough to make my verdict. So what is the verdict? Well, I'll have the answer right after the money spot. Are you looking to update your bar or man cave with some great photographs or wall art? Head over to Etsy at famousdocs.etsy.com and pick up some fantastic prohibition, bourbon, whiskey, and gangster-related photographs and wall art. Guys, you got to check this stuff out. They've got photos of Al Capone, John Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, posters, all kinds of cool photos over there. And if you purchase 4 or more items at one time, you'll get 20% off your entire order for a limited time. That's famousdocs.etsy.com, famousdocs.etsy.com. Now, we've got 3 verdict options on the Blind Tasting Podcast. Are we going to keep it, collect it, or cull it? Keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar. This stuff's good for a pour anytime, but there's really no need to stock up on it since it's always available. Collect it. Grab another bottle or 2 since you find it so darn delicious, or it just may not be easy to obtain. Cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Jesse James Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 80 proof, I say, cull it. Look, I took a flyer, and I should have known better. It's a celebrity whiskey. It's a low proof point, not much color, low age. Don't know anything about the mash bill. We don't really know where it's from. And I paid $20 for the 750. I hate this because it's Jesse James Dupree, the whole fun chainsaw thing, jackal, rock and roll. You know, he's an entrepreneur, all the cool things. But sadly, this whiskey falls short. It's really not, to me, it's not much more than a mixer. And for less money, you can pick up the VOB 80 proof. I've seen it around for anywhere between $12 to $15. And the Jesse James, like I said, is $20. Now, that said, I'm not thrilled with the VOB 80 either. And I know this wasn't really meant to, and you know how I feel about Traveler. But the finish on the VOB is no bueno. And the finish on the Jesse James was nice. I really enjoyed the long, spicy, oaky finish on the Jesse James. And for something that's 24 months or 2 years old, it's got good color. It's got a nice finish. I would call it a wash between these two. And at that case, you know, if you're hard up for cash and you need a decent pour, you can't go wrong with Evan Williams bottled in bond for about 21, or even Old Granddad bottled in bond. I think you can get it any day, all day for $22. And that's right about the same price point as the Jesse James. And OGD, it's pretty much a banger. Well, I showed up, I tasted, and yeah, sometimes you got to get knocked on your ass to learn something. Well, today was that day. Lesson definitely learned. Well, that's all I got for today, Whiskey Freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your #1 attitudinal bourbon destination. Oh, hey, don't forget to buy the book. Run to Amazon right now, link in the show notes. Pick up that book. Love you guys. See you soon.